Good day. Welcome to Westchester Talk Radio. WestchesterTalkRadio.com. Produced by Sharc Creative, made possible by Robeson Oil, the house that service built. By Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk. By Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard. And by Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco. On the beat in Westchester, joined by John Bailey, publisher, executive editor, White Plains CitizeNet Reporter, WPCNR.com, and the host of a couple of shows that are available on cable systems all across Westchester, White Plains Week and People to be Heard. John, welcome back. It seems like every time we talk, we have another tragedy to deal with. For example, Highland Park. On the heels of even though this happened in Illinois and here we are in New York, the Supreme Court ruling about open carry in the state of New York. In the past month and a half, we've had Buffalo, we've had Uvalde, Texas, we've had Highland Park. The only question is who, where, and when next. It's like the 5 W's of reporting: who, what, when, where, and why. And I think we know how by this point, via gun or shotgun or hunting rifle or pistol or something like that. What's going on here, and what does this Supreme Court ruling about guns mean for New York?
It's not going to be good because now, in theory, you can carry a gun in New York City, period. Handgun.
And around New York State, open carry.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And the legislature, I think, is working on legislation to firm it up. My feeling is they should extend the time it takes to get a permit, thus preventing a person from going out, getting a gun, concealing it, and getting a revenge. Give them a cooling off period.
Now, here I think the Supreme Court played both sides of the fence. They said, yeah, New York, you can open carry. We think the Constitution allows you to do that. But this does not stop any state or locality from implementing any law that they deem to be and to make it as difficult as possible for anyone to go get a handgun, carry a handgun, and use a handgun. For example, New York State, based on the Supreme Court ruling, and New York City Mayor Eric Adams has indicated he'd do this, make requirements for being trained to be able to carry a handgun on your hip, in your pocket, showing in your waistbands or whatever it might be, so difficult that you have to be trained so intensely that you just might walk away and say it's not worth this. For City Council in New York, the state legislature in New York can implement rules and regulations about where guns can and cannot be carried, and they can make it almost everywhere that you cannot open carry.
Theaters, bars,
churches,
restaurants, schools, of course, and
anywhere.
Transit, mass transit.
Anywhere inside, baseball games, concerts,
particularly
Radio
baseball
City,
games,
Knicks games, Nets games, Rangers, Devils. Well, Devils, New Jersey. I can see New Jersey doing this kind of stuff too. The Islanders, but anywhere around the tri-state area, basically, we're going to have this, I guess, in time.
Well, that's another
restrictions that are so tough that it's not going to be worth it to even open carry. Not even think about it, we hope.
Yeah. But our immediate danger is the next few weeks before the legislature. Well, the legislature is supposedly going to do this. They're up there.
Supposedly they will. They were called back into extra session by Governor Hochul to at least consider this for now. We have to hope that sometime soon they will do more than what they've done so far, and they have made some implementation seemingly of this, but there's still a long way to go. So the Supreme Court does this with guns. We have to, as a society, react to that and do more to stop open carry as best as possible. And now the Supreme Court also issues its ruling on abortion, which does not get rid of abortion, but says we think it should be where it should have been all along, back in the hands of the states. So this does not preclude any state from allowing abortion like it will be. Even Republican office holders in the Hudson Valley that we speak to on Sharc Creative and around our different talk radio networks say that abortion will be able to happen in the state of New York continuously, will be legal and protected, and that's just how it is around this part of the country.
Well, we shall see. But the legislature has to do it as soon as possible. They have never had a sense of urgency. Never.
Why?
Yeah.
Why?
And I do not understand that. This is important because temper is what causes you to shoot somebody, and it's an instant reaction thing. And as far as carrying a gun, that happens. Remember the New York Giants wide receiver who was carrying a gun in a restaurant?
Burris in a club
Yes.
in Manhattan. And I had been around the corner from that club when that happened a few hours before, actually, right up the block there that same night. That cost the Giants a second consecutive Super Bowl in all likelihood.
Yes. Is he still in jail or is he out?
He went to jail for a year. Funny thing is, his wife is an attorney, or at least was at that time. And I thought maybe within the household that could have been schooled better. But we see athletes, big money athletes, the last 20 years, 20, 25 years, more and more getting involved in weapons incidents, carrying incidents. And it's because they want to protect themselves and their households. And that's understandable, knowing the kind of money that they make. We see what happened to the Redskins star safety, Sean Taylor, in 2007. When his home got invaded and he was shot and killed. And that's been an impetus for what the Plaxico Burrises of the world have been doing since then.
But to the point, Burris was carrying the gun in his belt and he touched it somehow and shot himself in the leg.
Right.
So this idea of training how to carry and get a gun out is a very good one.
And I think this state is going to make it, I hope. This state will make it so tough that if John Marino says, I think my neighborhood's changing and I'd like to protect myself and my household a bit more, I want to go get a gun, or anybody thinks like that. And then I see what the rules and regulations are, how much time, what I would have to do to learn how to handle this gun properly before I get the right accreditation to be able to open carry in New York. I'm going to say I don't have time for that. I don't think I can do that. It's not worth it. So I'll take my chances.
Now, other than the revolver, the old West type of pistol, where you have 6 chambers and you squeeze the trigger, today's automatics, you have to cock it before you can shoot it. Cock not is exactly the word, but I mean, you have to do something like this, to get it firing. And it's rather technical.
We also have to stop third-party straw buys. For example, Sandy Hook in Connecticut a decade ago, Adam Lanza, his weapons were bought, I believe, by his father. He was a teenager. Or the kid in Buffalo, Peyton Gendron. At the age of 16, his father bought him a weapon. Now, if I had a weapon in my house at the age of 16, my parents knew how to raise myself and my brother just by the things they said or by taking something away from you. For example, you'd be grounded for a month. That was their discipline. We tested it. We found out they meant it, and we learned. If they ever had any suspicion I walked into the house with a gun, then I think their parenting methods would have been a bit more intense, and rightfully so. That would have never been allowed to happen in my household. And I don't get these parents who think it's okay to give their kids a weapon of any sort at the age of 15, 16, 17, 18. Now we hear the kid out in Illinois, this Robert Bobby Cremo person, apparently his guns were illegally bought. Don't know if he bought them or his father bought them. His father ran for mayor a few years back in town against the current mayor, adding to me another twist to all of this. Are we devoting enough to mental health?
Yes, it's fascinating that a person who actually was mayoral quality out there, perhaps, would have this attitude. It's just fascinating to me. there's just a gun culture out there that has watched too many B movies from the 30s.
Bad B movies from
Bad
the 30s.
B movies.
Or like F movies from the 30s, or D
Yes.
from the 30s and 40s.
Noir cinema, and there's this mystique about guns that it makes you feel good. But the characters I liked the most were the characters who didn't shoot to kill. They shot the guns out of the adversary's hands. And I never saw Gene Autry or Roy Rogers.
Or John Wayne.
John Wayne shot to kill. And
yeah, he did.
Of course, and his movies were really amazing because he never served in the military. Yet he
knew how to handle a gun, it seemed.
Oh, in the movies.
In the movies.
Like the actor on the set recently.
You know, with all these kids, there were indications that something was wrong. Talk of suicide, talk of this, of that. Things they did that set off red alerts, and no one did anything about it in Buffalo, in Uvalde, in Highland Park. How do we get people who obviously need help? How do we get them that help so they don't hurt themselves or anyone else?
People have to be willing to admit that their child has a problem instead of criticizing the educators who say, look, this guy is doing this and this and this, and we're going to suspend him next time he does it. I mean,
the uncle out in Highland Park, an uncle Bobby Cremo, apparently went on CNN, and he said, I saw nothing wrong with my nephew. He was a bit of a loner, but I saw nothing wrong from him that would indicate he might do anything like this, to which I say, how did you look at him? Like this? Maybe. The signs were all over, seemingly. But families don't want to deal with this stuff.
Oh, because that's pressure.
And this could be what we see, what happened in Highland Park, could be the end result. Joe Biden. Well, let me preface this by saying in 1983, Rita Coolidge had a big hit song, spring and summer of 83, called All Time High. Joe Biden has done the reverse kind of a hit with his approval ratings at an all-time low now. We see the proposal for the federal gas tax to be suspended. Even some Democrats look at that and say, And according to economists...
what are they looking at? Why would they not want to do that?
Some economists say that for people who drive on a regular basis, they save only $2 a week, or we see now on average $2 a week.
That's not the point. It is the idea that you're trying to help. I mean, if you're in the Democratic Senate or the Democratic House, you need all the help you to get to counteract the amazing propaganda that is being put out by websites who purport to be telling the truth.
Now, in line with this, the county and the county board has decided to suspend for the summer, at least at some county parks and pools, weekday fees to help out along this line. It's not a lot of money, but for a family who's got 4 kids, maybe, that adds up.
It certainly does. I mean, I will have to say this, that Mr. Latimer and I sometimes disagree on his policies, but he makes the policies and I have no say. So therefore, but he is the only legislature leader I know of in this state that has done anything like that. He's actually saved them a lot of money. He is saving them parking at commuter stations, which is exorbitant at White Plains and North White Plains, the biggest line in the state. And that is really helpful. And he was the first to actually attempt to suspend the sales tax on gas sales in the county. That's been going on for a while. I think he is to be commended for that because it's saving a lot of money, and we have the COVID surplus to thank for that. Really, make no mistake, COVID has killed a lot of people in Westchester, but it has gained a lot of aid to replace the serious damages that people have
So let's talk about COVID. Are cases going up again? Do we have wave number 5 in this county?
Well, it depends on, NBC News this morning was calling wave number 6. I kind of think it's a continuation of the 5th wave. But be that as it may, yes, it is going up. We had over 10,000 new infections in the county last week.
Over what period of time?
7 days.
Wow.
7 days.
10,000 new now in 7 days.
Yes. It's amazing. And nobody's telling you that except me. It's easy. I just count it each day.
And, so how do we... Is
300 a day.
We can stop this? Is there any way we can cut this down? I know 4 people who have gotten it within the past month, and a couple of them pretty decently. I know one person has lingered for about 10, 12 days. I think she's doing a bit better. Now I know someone else who had it for 4 days, and he told me, do whatever you can not to get it, because the first 2 days I couldn't move out of bed.
Really? Now, we don't hear that too much, do we? That's the first time I've heard that.
And he's gotten, I think, 3 shots.
I want to correct something. It is not 10,000 last week. It was 10,000 for the month of June.
Okay.
10,000 for the month of June.
Which is still a high number.
No. Why is it high? Because last June, when we were building into an influx of cases in July, we only had 450 new cases in June.
Right, and now the numbers are a lot higher around the tri-state area throughout June than they were a year ago. Let's see what happens in July.
We were averaging 15 a day in Westchester County last June.
And
now we're averaging 300 a day.
I get the impression health officials are worried about what's going to happen in the fall again. That's just my observations at the moment. I have a feeling those are your observations too. Do we need to worry about monkeypox? We have a case in Rockland, other cases around the Hudson Valley. Do we need to worry about monkeypox, or does this seem confined to a certain community only so far?
I don't know how you get monkeypox. I think
touching each other, physical contact.
There goes sexual relations. There it goes.
If it increases to any real extent, I would have to say, there it goes back to like pandemic levels, basically, early.
No more hugging, guys.
No
more huggings. No men hugs anymore.
Even I'm a little leery still when somebody comes at me with an outstretched hand or wants to give me a hug.
I don't like that. I agree with you. I don't like you. And
I think we still have to be cognizant of the situation, especially with the numbers going up, no doubt about that.
Well, I'll tell you how contagious it is. I was talking to someone yesterday who was going out to Colorado, and he and his family flew out to Las Vegas and had to stay one night to make a connection. Next day, he comes down with COVID from the hotel in Vegas. Vegas really saves a lot on cleaning their hotels, apparently.
There's also talk that the Phoenix Suns of the NBA, they were bounced out early in the playoffs by the Dallas Mavericks, that there was a COVID outbreak on the team that really wasn't talked about. So you talk about people in power and supposedly in the know, not telling us everything about COVID. That may be an example right there of what's going on with that. And hate to think that if you're Chris Paul and the Phoenix Suns, that a COVID outbreak on my team may have cost me an NBA championship.
Right. Well, I mean, how did Aaron Judge get let into Canada to play in Toronto?
I think he got vaccinated. I do.
I see.
From what I know, he did agree to get vaccinated finally. I think the Yankees took the tack the Nets did not take with Kyrie Irving, where he sat out more than half the season not getting vaccinated, and he could only play on the road, where the Nets should have said, hey, Kyrie, you signed the deal. We're paying you a lot of money. You get vaccinated or you don't play at all. Instead, the Nets went halfway. Well, you can play on the road. And then when they really needed him, they found a way to get him available for home games. Whereas the Yankees saw this Toronto deadline, Canadian deadline coming up, and I think they basically told their unvaccinated players at that point, you get vaccinated or else, whatever else might be.
Yeah, because they may have to play Toronto in the playoffs.
Yeah, and the kind of money that Aaron Judge is going to get eventually, do you think the Yankees would pay him that if he were not vaccinated? Or
He's
he had
gone.
that arbitration that got
He's
canceled last
gone.
minute about 10
He
days
will
ago?
not sign.
Yeah,
He will not
maybe they
sign.
said to Aaron Judge, if you don't get vaccinated, you wait until we get you in that arbitration and what we'll bring up there. All these angles that
they
maybe
have muddied the waters. They were too cheap. Aaron Judge, they felt that Aaron Judge was prone to injury, so they didn't want to give him a long-term contract, and that's what held it all up. He had an injury a couple of years ago, and I think
he bet on himself. That bet seems to be working so far, but the question is, did he get vaccinated before hitting Toronto? From what we know on this end here,
he was an irresponsible
who were
role
not
model.
Vaccinated up to
Any kid who looks up to Aaron Judge and Aaron Judge is claiming he doesn't want to get vaccinated. Well, Aaron Judge did not set a good example. He didn't set a good example for his teammates. He was putting his teammates at risk. And I'm sorry, but no, I don't think he signs with the Yankees. The Mets will sign him.
I hear Steve Cohen is not interested in getting into a bad blood kind of a war with the Yankees, which the Mets signing Aaron Judge would probably set off, and that he may be more likely, if he's not back with the Yankees, since he's from the San Francisco area, maybe to wind up with the Giants. Just a thought. Long way to go, I think, with the Aaron Judge situation.
Yes, but I mean, it would
the second half of the season. Can he stay healthy? Can he keep up with these numbers? Will the Yankees win the American League pennant? And I think some doubt was cast about that with those 5 games they played recently with the Astros, who played in 9 in a row with the Mets and Yankees, went 7-2. And the Astros did not trail in any of those 9 games, except for the 2 Aaron Judge walk-off hits that gave the Yankees those 2 wins. That single and that home run were the only times the Houston Astros were trailing or wound up losing a game against the Mets and Yankees in that 9-game stretch. John Bailey is the publisher and editor of WPCNR. White Plains CitizenNet Reporter and the host of White Plains Weekend People to be heard on a variety of cable systems around Westchester County. John, the primaries round 1 results are in as best as possible as we know them right now. The race for governor, Kathy Hochul wins easy, the Democratic nomination. Long Island Congressman Lee Zeldin wins the Republican nomination pretty easily overall after a series of some amusing debates, I thought, between Rob Astorino, the former Westchester executive, played the debates the best. I thought he won them. He stayed out of the fray between Zeldin, Harry Wilson, and to some extent, Andrew Giuliani, which was the smart and the right thing to do. Size up what happens in November between Hochul and Zeldin right now as you see it.
Well, it depends on how much COVID affects us in the summer, because they will give the Republicans a tremendous issue to slog Governor Hochul with, that she didn't do enough to stop COVID. Not that the Republicans would have done, but they always take the opposite argument of what they would do. And it's going to be a very strong issue if everything takes off, which by the numbers means it is going. I see that really taking off. It's going to be very bad by the time school starts. And the schools are going to have to make big decisions. The decisions are, should every student be vaccinated or required to be vaccinated? I think so.
How does crime and inflation play into the race? All these other issues, supply chain issues.
It's a matter of public health. You've got 5 to 12-year-olds now, and also the nursery school crowd below 5. You now have vaccinations for them coming in, and we have so much information available that says the vaccinating the kids is making us sick, and it's promulgated by these right-wing propaganda websites that are all over the place that have tremendous followings, and people want to believe what they like to believe. That's why they're having such an effect. This is the Pravda technique, the old Soviet newspaper. And I have to say that the schools are under a lot of pressure. They have to, if the variants, the BA variants, which I was just reading today, is highly infection, as NBC finally discovers COVID. You know, NBC discovers COVID. That's actual news. And the coverage by the media of COVID spread has been terrible.
We hardly hear about it anymore.
No,
that
right. It's
is
terrible.
the case right now.
Everybody wants to get back to normal. I was in New
All right,
York
now
City.
the race for governor also too.
Yeah.
How does crime, how does inflation, bail reform or lack thereof, how does all this play into?
It plays right into
Zeldin.
Zeldin's message. Plays right into Zeldin's wheelhouse here. He can criticize her for creating the crime wave. I can see a commercial like that with the bail reform. I can see him criticize. I'm giving them their campaign right now, and it's going to work for the persons who don't realize that and inflation, the state has done nothing about inflation, and they could.
That's basically a federal issue, but people don't look at it that way.
No, but
How about guns? Now, on the other side of the coin,
I
wouldn't
think
the
Hochul's
guns
in
issue
trouble.
help Kathy Hochul as opposed to Lee Zeldin, who is in favor of open carry, agrees with the Supreme Court ruling? I would think this would work heavily against him.
Yeah, if you are a person like you and I who realize the implications of bad decisions, I think it works in Hochul's favor. However, there's nothing like a Republican ad with a big flag, and we have to protect ourselves. It's all about ideas in a gubernatorial run, and projecting Zeldin as, you know, a man, getting a man back in charge. It is going to be so misogynist, this campaign.
Can't you see a Hochul campaign ad saying, want to see all your neighbors on your block carrying a gun on their waist, on their hip? Vote for Zeldin.
You're absolutely right. However, negative campaigns really work to your advantage because people start considering Zeldin the underdog.
Yeah, but if I thought everybody on my block might be carrying a gun and something might go off by accident, that might sway me to say, you know what, Governor Hochul, you got a point.
Yeah, well, when Gannett published who owned guns in certain communities a few years ago, you realized exactly how many people living around.
No question, and people that you would never expect would have a gun too, that they believe they need to protect themselves. Yeah. That is an individual choice, no doubt about that, but we have to protect everybody at the same time. The abortion issue and what the Supreme Court did, Kathy Hochul saying we'll fund people who come here from states where abortion will be and may have already been banned since that Supreme Court decision been banned de facto already by that point, that we'll use taxpayer money in New York to fund abortions for out-of-state women, and abortion right to choose in the state of New York is guaranteed. I don't see that changing. Can't she use that against Lee Zeldin too, who has come out on the opposite side of the abortion coin?
Well, that is the one issue that can get more women to vote for Hochul, who probably will vote for her anyway, but I think women are fickle. They don't particularly like really successful women. It's a jealousy factor. And so there is that possibility. If you would have many more women being elected if women actually voted for them. And a lot of women do, but a lot of them don't, particularly out in the middle part of the country. You know, they're somewhat, what can I say? They sort of go along with what the man they're with wants them to go along with. But I don't know. It's just the theory of mine that just because you're a woman, you cannot expect women to vote for you. You have to the only way you can win is to outwork the men, which is not hard.
Governor Hochul has relaxed how nonprofits can pay top executives.
What was that? Well-known national charitable organization, when it shown their leaders were making 400 and 500,000 a year.
And
That
some were making
astounded
2
me.
or 3 million a year.
Yeah. What was that? It was not the American way, but it was something like that.
Yeah, along those lines, the upper echelon.
But that has faded from you. And I always feel that there's a terrible thing about many of these fundraising organizations that are professional fundraisers, and the charities employ them. The fundraiser gets about 80 cents of every dollar they raise, and I always refuse to give.
Well, I look at it this way. If you're making money and profiting and somebody's getting a nice high salary, you're not really a nonprofit at that point.
No, you're not, because the people at the top running the charity get the profit.
They are profiting very well and very nicely, no doubt. And, Governor Hochul signs into law a bill to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Does that matter for us?
Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to do it. Otherwise, the planet is going south, literally. And I think it's absolutely, I think the Supreme Court intervened in this again last week, saying that you can't, they told the EPA if you no longer set emissions rates high or low of greenhouse gases, or whatever the gases they're called. That's a terrible decision. It means that irresponsible corporations just won't do it because they don't think, our little bit isn't going to matter. That's a terrible decision by the Supreme Court. Where are their brains, their didacticists?
Well, Governor Hochul moves to right this wrong. Now, Tom Abenanti, longtime, he's up in Albany for a long time in the assembly, and he gets defeated by Mary Jane Shimsky on the county board in the 92nd district, covering basically Greenberg and part of Mount Pleasant, Hudson River communities, and central and lower part of the county. Tom Abenanti came up through the ranks, over 30 years of public service on the county board he was, and he's done some other things along the way too, and wound up on the assembly. I guess it was back in 2010 at 6 terms in office there. And Mary Jane Shimsky on the county board representing the river towns. Now she wins the Democratic nomination in the 92nd Assembly.
Rather handily, actually.
Well, here's rather handily by a lot. And keep in mind that Mary Jane Shimsky once worked in that office for Abenanti's predecessor, the late Richard Brodsky. What was the key to Mary Jane Shimsky's victory?
Well, I think Abenanti turned to some other issues during the year when he realized he might be in trouble and tried to promote that. He spent a lot of money trying to save his seat, but it did not work. But the one thing that Mary Jane Shimsky has to do is the thing that was Abenanti's number one issue. He was an advocate for the disabled. He has a disabled son, and I believe, and he's the only one I know the legislature has spoken out against the shabby amounts of money and efforts to house the growing disabled population. I mean, the idea of more group homes. We haven't had many established in recent years. The only governor who really cared about this issue really was Pataki. His wife was very instrumental in introducing the New York Cares movement, which expanded it, and my son, who is disabled, is now in a group home that was enabled during that time of Pataki. And every once in a while, I'll run into him up in Cold Spring, and I'll shake his hand for doing that.
Mary Jane Shimsky said Tom Abenanti did not do enough for this area during COVID, and apparently when it was time to again...
What was he going to do? I mean, that
was her claim early on.
Yes.
One thing I think...
But John, that's what the Republicans are going to do. They're going to claim Ms. Hochul didn't do enough. Now, it's not Ms. Hochul. She can't control that anymore. People are forgetting that the legislature has control over COVID restrictions now. They run it. They took it away from Governor Cuomo, and he immediately just opened the doors of the saloon.
Well, I think one thing she was peeved about was that Tom Abenanti, third time around, did not back the rent moratorium, the suspension on rents for those who could not pay, which Mary Jane Shimsky apparently supported doing it one more time. And I think that was one of her sticking points, too. Now, in the 95th district, longtime Sandy Gay-left Democrat is retiring, and a three-way primary won by Newcastle Town Supervisor Dana Levenberg.
We know Horace Greeley, right?
The Panthers against the Quakers, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But no, my feeling is that there has to be a change in attitude of people getting into the legislature now. They have to really work with conscience and work with doing what is right and not what is good for them, i.e. getting reelected.
We still have one more primary to go late August for Congress and for state senator. 17th district, which encompasses part of Westchester, about 45% of Rockland County, and also, I guess now a little sliver of Putnam County, too. Mondaire Jones was forced out. He was elected to succeed Nita Lowy in that district, but some differences. Mondaire Jones has done a lot in his one term in office, yet Sean Patrick Maloney, who controls the Democratic congressional purse strings, was in the 18th, says, I'm getting out of there. I'm going into the 17th. He was one district north. Mondaire says, all right, I'm going to get out, go down to Manhattan, out to Park Slope, Brooklyn, lower Manhattan, out to Park Slope, Brooklyn. He's running in the 10th against a plethora of opponents, including one-time New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio. Also in the 17th, Maloney has a pretty good challenge on his hands from State Senator Alessandra Biaggi, who now represents the North Bronx and Southern Westchester. She thought she'd run in the originally drawn up 3rd district, which would have encompassed the Sound Shore area, parts of Bronx, Queens, Nassau, and Suffolk, where Tom Suozzi is right now, where he's going to be out. That got thrown out the window by the special master, and Biaggi was stuck in basically no person's land at that point, and she had to pick a place to go if she wanted to stay potentially in office somehow. So she's decided to challenge Sean Patrick Maloney from his left flank, and Maloney is pretty progressive and liberal as it is. In the 17th, and now Mike Lawler, a conservative Republican assemblyman from Rockland County, he's got a primary with a few other people that in all likelihood, Lawler will win that Republican primary and be the nominee. But it seems like a real free-for-all in this 17th now just because of what Sean Patrick Maloney did to Mondaire Jones.
Right. I mean, people voted Mondaire Jones in.
Yeah, last I heard.
And then the Democratic leaders who were really annoyed that these guys came out of nowhere and beat long-term do-nothing Democrats, so they redrew the districts in a big mistake, broke the law. They didn't even know their own law, and they are responsible for this crock of election districts.
You know, if I were Mondaire Jones, I would have told Sean Patrick Maloney, you want me to get out? Make me. Now, Sean Patrick Maloney could have said, all right, I'm not going to give you any money for your race. But I think Mondaire Jones is crafty enough from what I've seen to be able to have done whatever he needed to do. I wish he would have stayed and fought his decision.
We lost a good man.
Downtown and
we lost a good man.
This situation reeks. There's no doubt about that.
It's crooked as the Jersey Turnpike.
And Maloney may not have, from people I've spoken to in Rockland, he may not have the easy path to victory as he thinks, because he seemingly is not making the scene in Rockland the way he should. And as one Rockland official said to me, he has to realize that this county now makes up 45% of what the special master did for the 17th. So I've seen, and this is a Republican who told me this, I've seen Alessandra Biaggi get out there and pound the beat at different events around Rockland. I have really yet to see Sean Patrick Maloney get out there and do the work I see that Biaggi is doing.
He's taking Rockland for granted. He's taking it for granted. And whenever you do that, people realize you're doing that. That's what happened to Elliot Engel. One flippant remark, everybody suddenly got pies in their faces and decided, well, that's what he feels.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the man who has done nothing for 30 years in Congress. Zippo.
Well, the next
and they got rid of
like
them. Do-nothings have got to be thrown out. That they just generally,
in many ways, you do nothing, you get elected.
Well, if you don't aggravate people, it's when you aggravate people that they vote you out. And,
you and I have a history of aggravating people, I think. That's why we can never get elected.
Yes,
that's what it comes down to. We'll see.
Well, no, we don't get considered for election because nobody wants to work with somebody that actually has brains. They want somebody who will run for the council person's salary, which in White Plains is like $36,000 for going to detention twice a month.
It's a part-time salary in White Plains.
Yes. Yeah. And they can stay working and whatever. And
that's why everybody in the Common Council has a full-time job.
Yes, exactly. So I have a full-time job doing, but it is not remunerative.
It's been an interesting past few weeks. We have the primary in late August again for Congress and for State Senate. We'll see what happens then. John Bailey, we thank you as always here for being part of Westchester Talk Radio and what you do over at WPCNR, White Plains CitizenNet Reporter, publisher, editor, and host of a couple of shows available all around Westchester on different cable systems. White Plains Weekend, people to be heard. John Bailey, we thank you.
Final word. Just remember, folks, and no one will tell you this, but I will tell you that we had 10,000 new infections of COVID in June.
And we'll see what happens
in Westchester County alone, and that is a lot.
We'll see what happens in July and throughout the course of the summer, no doubt. John Bailey here.
10,000 more in July.
WestchesterTalkRadio.com, produced by Sharc Creative on the beat in Westchester. I'm John Marino, and we are made possible by Robeson Oil. The house that Service built by Michael Labriola, landscape design and construction of Armonk, and also, too, by Hightower Westchester, managing your wealth to a fiduciary standard, and by Jaguar Land Rover of New Rochelle, White Plains, and Mount Kisco. Catch all of our Westchester, Rockland, Putnam, Dutchess, Orange, and Fairfield County Talk Radio programming on our YouTube channel, Sharc Creative YouTube. Download our app. Take it with you 24/7. It's called Westchester Talk. Go to our website, WestchesterTalkRadio.com, and check out all the locations and what the films will be for our 2022 summer movie series. And also, too, now we are available on Apple Podcasts. Yes, Westchester Talk Radio, much more still to come.